Basement's cleared out. You can see on the side we're pumping out the basement.
Across northeast Iowa, people are racing to save their belongings. See how far rivers have pushed out of their banks and what's being done to help the flood victims.
And the worst may be yet to come, with damage forecasts comparable to 2008. We'll detail the threat to larger cities when the water flows south over the weekend.
From WHO HD, the local news leader. This is Channel 13 News at 6.
The key is we are focused on all communities, and that's really what we want to do, is deal with those that we're dealing with now that are currently affected, but more important is be proactive on those communities that will see this water in a few days from now.
This afternoon, Iowa leaders mapped out their response to some of the worst flooding the state has seen in nearly a decade. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Erin Kiernan.
And I'm Dan Winters. The floods of 2008 were a distant memory as recently as a couple of days ago.
Now, a lot of communities are heading into the weekend with a possibility of similar conditions. The culprits are the same as 8 years ago. As you see here, most of the gauges showing flooding are along the Cedar and Turkey rivers. People downstream are waiting with bated breath for the water to rise.
Upstream, that's already the reality. We have team coverage tonight from northeastern Iowa. Mike DeSilva is live in Waverly, but we go first to Charles City. Ben Oldak updates us from there. Ben.
Hey Dan, we're about 6 hours away from 0 hour. This is when the river is going to crest. Officials say that it's going to crest around midnight tonight. You can see right here just how high it's gotten up against these pylons of this bridge and just how fast the water's been moving. And even though, as you said, to us 2008 feels like a distant memory, the people here feel like it happened yesterday.
My youngest daughter was born a month after that flood, but then they called it the 100-year flood, and yeah, 8 years later again.
And 8 years ago, the river crested at 25.3 inches. Officials say when the river crests tonight, the water will be at 21.8 inches. Residents have been doing their best to guard against their house with sandbags because they remember just how much damage the 2008 floods caused.
That right there along there is where it was in 2008. So it's pretty good.
Joyce and her husband have about 3 feet of water in their basements right now, and that's the kind of damage that other people have reported seeing. They say, though, that they're going to have to wait until after the river crests to really be able to assess some of this damage. But as you said, I'm not the only one out here covering. Mike DeSilva is out in Waverly. So, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing over there?
That's right, Ben. Folks here had over 19 feet of flooding back in 2008. After that, the city put this inflatable dam in, and folks here say it has made a difference.
I think we're a little more prepared for it this time. I know the city's gone through a lot of measures to make sure that different parts of town are better protected, and I think that we are.
City officials are predicting that the Cedar River in Waverly will crest at 14.2 feet tomorrow at noon. That prediction is down 1.8 feet from yesterday's forecast. Waverly's inflatable dam prevents flooding from occurring in northwest and southwest Waverly. In addition to that dam, the city recently installed a concrete channel called the Dry Run that also helps with flood control. However, despite both of those efforts, southeast Waverly is currently experiencing moderate flooding, and some residents have been evacuated. The southeast Waverly neighborhood is expected to be inaccessible until Monday.
We're bracing for the worst, hoping that it doesn't get higher, but we haven't even hit our crest point, and it's still raising as we speak. So we're praying for the best, but we're preparing for the worst.
And a shelter has been set up at Grace Baptist Church for residents who have been displaced. Dan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike.
The Shell Rock River's record crest of 21 feet is tangling traffic in a nearby city. Highway 3 runs through Shell Rock, and as you can see, it is now submerged in water. The same goes for nearby homes. One homeowner tells us he is filling his basement full of clean water in the hopes of keeping river water out.
Of course, all of that water is going to flow south towards Cedar Rapids, where people are bracing for what is forecasted to be the second worst flooding in history. In 2008, Cedar Rapids suffered about $1 billion in damage, and with that in mind, Volunteers are stacking sandbags around homes and businesses, and it doesn't stop there.
We're using every resource available to protect the city and our citizens from harm. And we've been, again, working around the clock. We've been planning for this kind of event that you obviously hope will never happen for a long time.
The Cedar River at Cedar Rapids is expected to crest at about 25 feet Tuesday morning. Evacuations could begin as soon as Sunday.
In Ames, the flooding was gone as quickly as it came. Up to 5 inches of rain fell overnight, causing pools to form along streets and leaving hundreds of homes in the dark. And bad news for Cyclone fans headed to tomorrow's game. Iowa State is closing off those grassy lots that a lot of people use for tailgating. Fans are encouraged to park on Central Campus or nearby paved lots.
Obviously, we need some dry weather across much of the state, but it doesn't appear that's what's going to happen. We go to meteorologist Brett McIntyre for a first look at what is headed our way, Brett.
Yeah, it'll be another round of rain and storms that could be strong on Saturday evening in western Iowa. The hope may be that those strong storms are able to kind of run themselves out in the western half of the state, but they will have the potential to continue into eastern Iowa as heavy rain in the overnight. We're going to get to that in just a minute. This is one of the problems in Ames from the flash flooding last night. Again, porta potties knocked over, and these are some of the lots that will be open. The commuter lot there between Jack Trice and Hilton Coliseum. Again, the grass lots are being shut down. As you can imagine, things even nastier there. Justin Langford last night. This was from the plane looking toward Plainfield from Hubbard. Lightning in the distance. And our rainfall totals from last night, about 5.5 inches of rain reported around Ames, Cambridge at 4.5, Napier 4 inches, Clarion 3.8, Laverne at 3.5, Gilbert 3.3, and a good chunk of locations around that green area, Waverly, at nearly 12 inches of rain now since that Wednesday start to our heavy rain. This thin line on radar, no rain out there, but that's the cool outflow from the rain overnight. So we are still seeing the effects of it, even as we get the rain out of the radar for the time being. Cool weather pushing across the metro here, bring us a little bit of relief from near 90-degree temperatures again this afternoon. Look at all these green boxes. These are basically beyond river flood warnings. We call them aerial floods, and just because they cover the entire area. You get away from the creeks and streams. Fields, roads still submerged. At one point, basically all of the roads in Floyd County were underwater. Still have major highways shut down in that area, and again, not a lot of improvement, I think, until we start to come out of the weekend, and that could change as well with our Saturday night forecast. We'll timeline out exactly when those storms will be moving through coming up in just a little bit.
Appreciate it, Brett. Of course, there is no threat whatsoever for any flooding here in the middle part of the state. Another silver lining is that football fans can leave their umbrellas at home tonight.
Yeah, the clouds have parted just in time for our big game of the week. In sports, we will go live to Gilbert. We will check in with John Sears. He has a preview of the game against Boone.
And authorities are bracing for another night of protests in Charlotte, North Carolina. Coming up, new video showing the moments leading up to a fatal shooting of a man by police. Next.
From WHO HD, the local news leader. You're watching Channel 13 News at 6.